Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, home of the 22nd ranked Louisville Cardinals football team. And in Maryland, in somebody's trophy room or a picture stolen of somebody's trophy room, John Webster. How you doing, John?
Hey, Gary, I'm doing great. Hope everybody else is doing well. Also, another great week in sports. Can't wait to get into it. Uh, Two things. One, let me say hey to John Pitt.
Hey, hey.
And also, while we have John Pitt right there, Gary, I want to also say something to John, a compliment to him. He has been asking me to check out the Premier League in soccer, and I did it this past Saturday. And I watched a game. It was Everton versus Bournemouth, and it was probably one of the most exciting games I've ever seen in soccer. Everton was winning 2-0 and ended up losing 3-2 when Bournemouth scored 3 goals in the last 9 minutes, and 6 of those 9 minutes were stoppage play. So, John, thanks for continually staying on me to watch some Premier League soccer. I absolutely, positively enjoyed it.
Glad you enjoyed it, man. Yeah, every Saturday morning, Gary, you gotta come in and check
Oh,
these games out.
oh yeah. I'm a big fan of the Premier League and Bundesliga. Yeah, I love Bundesliga. I don't know if that's your kind of thing, John Pitt, but yeah, I mean,
What did you just say, Gary? You said
the
boom.
Bundesliga, like
Germany.
German league.
Oh, okay.
The way you asked me that, John, made it sound like I just said a bad word, and I was like, "What did I say?"
Like, what did you just say?
Yeah, but yeah, it's. I mean, you can't turn on the TV. Like I think two of the 18 subscriptions it seems like that I have, I know at least five of them have have soccer uh foreign soccer on them. So I can watch the Premier League, I can watch German soccer. And for what it's worth, yes, I still pay attention to MLS when I can find it. So, you know,
Y'all know I love soccer, but guys, it is officially NFL week. Football
yeah.
starts this week. Can we please talk some American football?
Yes. Okay. Hey, thank you for for getting us back on the track, Mr. Conductor. I really do appreciate that. Okay, let's get into it. The season starts Thursday with the Chiefs, the three-time Super Bowl champ, recent Super Bowl champ, defending Super Bowl champ, Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. Um, a revenge game in many respects for Baltimore after losing to the Chiefs last year in the AFC title game, and many of us that have watched the Ravens, and I'll say many of us here in Kentucky are still wondering how in the world did they lose that game? Was that Lamar's last chance? So, John, I'll just ask you, and then I'll jump in. What do you think about a game like that for the Ravens? Do they need to come out like gangbusters? Does it really matter for the Chiefs? Because last year they were in the same situation and got boat raced by the Detroit Lions. What do you think?
Well, a lot of people are saying revenge game. I don't find it to be a revenge game because it's a regular season game. Nothing is going. The only way it becomes a revenge game if you meet them again in the AFC Championship. It's the first game of the regular season. Um, it'll be an interesting game. In primetime games, I think Lamar Jackson is something like 16-4. Uh, Plays very well in these primetime games. I think the Ravens as a team this year will have to rely more on the offense. I think their defense is going to be a work in progress. I think they're going to become better, but you got to think they lost their defensive coordinator. They lost a few players off that defense, and there's no way they're going to be as good as they were last year at the beginning of the season. I think in the beginning, they're going to need to put some points on the board. They're going to need to score 24, 27, maybe 30 points in the beginning games until the defense can catch up. They're still concerned even on the offensive side. How good is that offensive line going to be for the Ravens when they lost 3 out of 6 players on the offensive line? So that's still going to be an issue. You switch on over to Kansas City, they have some concerns as well. I think they lost 1 or 2 of their players in the secondary, if I'm not mistaken, Gary, on
Yeah.
defense. They also cut Kadarius Toney this week. I think that's not for performance on the field. I think that's for performance off the field for Kadarius Toney. But they still have that guy back there, number 15. So, I will say this. It will be a very good game. But I can't say that if I'm a Raven and I win that game, it's going to make me feel better about losing the AFC Championship game.
Yeah,
Doesn't change.
I would agree, John. And I think my biggest concern about that is if the Ravens win that game, will people kind of put too much hype on the Ravens? And I'll say here in Louisville, where people watch Lamar and people really talk about him, the general consensus is that Lamar doesn't have to do everything that he's been doing. A lot of people still fault the play calling last year. That when you're able to run the ball, that you didn't run the ball more when you had the chance. You put it too much on him. It's like you shackled him in some ways, and in some ways that he did what he was supposed to do in some respects, but the play calling was just way too conservative. I think it took him out of his game, and then at the end, it really forced him to have to do too much, to take too much on his shoulders. And I'll say he's as great as he is. He's not that quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes who can just flat out will a team downfield and win really 2 games, the AFC title game and that Super Bowl. There was never a doubt that they were going to move the ball in overtime against the 49ers and get in position. And I'm not talking about trying to get in position for a field goal. I'm talking about winning that game. The thing with the Ravens long term is you got to think about that division. I think they can win that division again, because I don't know how much better Pittsburgh is, with 2 solid quarterbacks. I really don't know how Cincinnati up the road is going to perform, especially with Jamar asking for more money and such. I don't know. Cleveland is still an anomaly to me. They really are. Even with that great defense, how will that offense perform? So I still think it's the Ravens' division to lose. Tomorrow night may or may not make a difference, but I will say that it's the kind of game that they have to play good. They have to play well, and that's it.
Yeah, they have to play well. Hopefully they can remember to bring the running game. They can look back at the AFC Championship game and see things that they forgot to do. Run the ball will be one of them. So they need to look at that, reduce the turnovers. And the one thing I'll say with your comments, you're right. Pittsburgh is up in the air. I got a lot of respect for Mike Tomlin. I think he'll make sure they have a way to be within the striking distance of the division. But Cincinnati is tough, man. If Joe Burrow is healthy and they get Jamar Chase back in camp, and I think they will. I think this is a holdout he's having where he will show up Saturday night with a signed deal. That's what I think.
If not sooner.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to go too soon because then you'd have to practice. Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. Did I just say that on TV? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You just want to get to the game. And I think Cincinnati, honestly, is tough. Cleveland is getting Watson back. I think Watson had some kind of shoulder surgery last season. It took him out. The team that, I just love Tomlin, what he does with Pittsburgh. And I think he's going to find a way to get something out of Russell Wilson this season. And I think don't be surprised. I do not think the Ravens will win the AFC North this year. Here I had to catch myself. Do you know what I was getting ready to say? The AFC Central, the AFC North. I do not think the Ravens will win it. I think it's going to be Pittsburgh or Cincinnati.
You know, the Steelers, again, and I used the word anomaly earlier. I think enigma is a more accurate word to describe Pittsburgh, because I think I just don't know what to make of Pittsburgh right now. There are actually, I've seen some threads where Tomlin might be on the hot seat this season. And they make a pretty good case about, like, say, the offense and some of the teams that they've lost to. And, really the fact that that team seems to be relying too much on this record of, well, he's never had a losing record. Yeah, he's gotten a lot out of teams. He's gotten more out of teams that probably shouldn't make the playoffs. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint that, 500 shouldn't be a threshold, for them to meet. In terms of success. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers of all teams, of all franchises. And I want to see that needle move a little bit more between between Fields and Russell Wilson. I hope that they have their quarterback. I hope that really Russell Wilson has a great year to prove another coach wrong and to prove his doubters wrong, and maybe to show that the quarterback that he was a couple of years ago, that he's still that guy. Because again, people forget that Russell Wilson, I think that for all of his faults, I think he had something like a 16-4 touchdown to interception ratio. And I'm like, yeah, he wasn't the same guy, but he wasn't bad. Those numbers weren't bad. I don't know why his previous coach, was just so down on him. And it seemed more personal. So we figured that part out. But the other game, John, let's see, Green Bay and the Eagles. That's one on Friday night. That is interesting to me because of Jalen Hurts. Can he stay healthy? Can they keep him healthy? Is Jordan Love really the quarterback for right now? Well, of course he is, because they just gave him all that money. That's one. I don't know which team really has more to prove. I think if I had to pick one, and John, I'm a Packers fan. I'm probably looking more at Green Bay to see how they come out of a game like this as opposed to Philadelphia, which I believe will be fine in the long run. They just have to play with a lot more fire and energy than last year, because that was a tired team last year.
Well, for this game on Friday night, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have more riding on this. They have to get out the gates fast. If they don't, Philadelphia is going to run that team out of Philadelphia. Fans are going to run them out of town. I think with Matt LaFleur and how he's doing things in Green Bay, it's more of a steady pace, more of a consistent pace. I think if Green Bay loses, I think LaFleur is going to have them bounce back. It's more of a consistent situation in Green Bay. It's not, oh my goodness, my hair's on fire. That's what you have in Philadelphia. And if Philly does not come out the gates, sorry about that, Gary. I got a lot of old sayings in me today. If Philly
you're talking to another bald guy too.
If Philly doesn't come out the gates 1-0 and starts off 0-1, the talk will automatically start.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, John, let's move down a level to college.
Just want to pitch and catch a little bit. Just pitch and catch a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the old ball coach's team is coming in here to Lexington on Saturday. That one's a national TV game, which I'm still kind of surprised at too. But, again, they signed a contract. They got to fill it with something. But let's talk about Florida State. Okay. What in the heck happened? It's one thing to go to Ireland and lose to Georgia Tech, a team that I think is up and coming, but it's another thing to come home and lose to Boston College.
I think
All the talk, John, about how, whether Florida State got messed over last year. I don't want to hear it. And another show I was just watching was saying the same thing. Just shut up. My thing about something like that is between them and Clemson, only scoring 3 points against Georgia, it just opens up the ACC. And for a number of teams, Louisville included, it's a golden opportunity to take advantage and get, really do something in the league, even with Stanford and SMU coming in, that you really have a chance to establish yourself right away in this league and do something about it. I do think that Florida State now has been exposed as a team that was really, playing on they were relying so much on Jordan Travis, and now we realize how much he meant to them and how much that injury really affected them. He's gone now, and they're struggling to fulfill that spot, to fill that void. And a lot of teams are going to get at them right now because they smell blood in the water in the ACC.
well, it's a lot of stuff right there. I agree with most of it. The one I will say, I think Florida State is a good team. I think they believe their press clippings. I think they are not. They have been shown to be flat in both games. And when I say flat, I'm not taking anything away from Georgia Tech or Boston College. I'll say Georgia Tech and Boston College are going to be a lot better than people think they are.
I agree.
But I think Florida State has talent, but they're not playing to their level of talent. You bring up Jordan Travis, they're relying on what they did last year, in my opinion. I think they want everybody to read their press clippings from last year, and they don't want to go out on that field. They want to walk in the stadium and say, we're the Seminoles, we're Florida State, but don't want to go on the field to prove it. That's what I think of them. And you mentioned Boston College and Georgia Tech. There are going to be two teams that are going to have to be dealt with. Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Louisville are going to be three very, very good teams this year and could win the ACC or play in the ACC championship. Clemson, we'll have to see. And for me, I can't really judge what they did against Georgia. That's what Georgia does to everybody on a weekly basis if their name isn't Alabama. So it's hard. It's hard for me to get on that wagon and say I want Dabo Swinney out of Clemson. It's too soon. It's just too soon.
Yeah. But Clemson, and I'm not talking about that game. I'm talking about just Clemson in general over these past couple of seasons. There's got to be a reckoning there in terms of how they build that team. We've read that Dabo Swinney is not a fan of NIL. He's not, supposedly he's not a big fan of the transfer portal either. Those are the two things that are governing college sports in general, but really college football, because I don't think that there's a squad out there that had less than, say, 24 transfers coming in, and probably in their incoming freshman class, at least a dozen players who wanted NIL money. And I mean, that's just the reality of the landscape in college football right now. And
I don't think. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, his traditional approach to it, it sounds very, very warped. I mean, it's just like, yeah, he sounds like the get off my lawn guy.
Hey, you make a good point. I can't disagree. I also don't think he has recovered from losing his defensive coordinator. What's the guy's name? Venables?
Brett Venables. Yeah,
with Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
He's always been with him, Gary. And I think that really, really hurt him. And I don't think he's recovered. And you're right. Dabo Swinney does not dabble. How about that? Dabo Swinney does not dabble in NIL money. and he doesn't believe in the transfer portal. And that's his right. But if you're not ready to change with the times, maybe you need to see if you can get a seat next to Nick Saban on
Mhm.
College Game Day, or get a seat next to Urban Meyer on the Fox College Game Day. Because time passes us all by, Gary. At some point, you're going to have kids, and they're going to do things that are going to be different from what you've believed in or wanted to do as a player, as a coach. And either you adjust to those times, or you need to move aside and let somebody else coach.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Now, with all the movement in college football, I'll tell you, and as a SEC, as a guy in SEC country, what I'm paying more attention to right now is what's happening at Alabama with Kalen DeBoer taking over for Nick Saban there, and for Mike Elko at Texas A&M. Yeah, they lost to Notre Dame, but I think I'm really paying attention to see how they respond, how those programs respond to their coach. I do think that that DeBoer probably, of course, Saban left him with a great cupboard, full of things to reach in and grab. But I think in his own right, I'd like to see him, really put his stamp and see something different. Really try to get a whole lot, try to get that little extra out of Jalen Milroe. And I'm not talking about, that's not a criticism at all. I just think that Jalen Milroe is probably that quarterback we're going to be talking about at some point for the Heisman. And I want to see exactly what he mines out of that talent to take him to that next level and keep Alabama on the national stage, on the national title stage in particular.
Gary, you've heard me say this one before too. And I'm going to try to cut back on these euphemisms and old sayings I'm doing today. But
Slobber knocker, that's your favorite.
but and you've heard the next one I'm going to say, Gary. You don't want to be the person to replace the man. You want to be the person to replace the man that replaced the man. So DeBoer is in a situation where it looks great. It looks really beautiful. Cupboard's not bare. You got a great quarterback who's a Heisman candidate. Losing 2 games in Alabama is not considered successful. Losing to Auburn is not considered successful. Losing to Georgia is not considered successful.
Mm-hmm.
All three of those things are possibilities this year because Georgia's on the regular season schedule. Auburn is always on the regular season schedule, and that could be 2 losses, which is never on Nick Saban's schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right about that. And with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, that's what I really want to pay attention to in terms of how the powerhouses respond to them. Because I think that Texas and Oklahoma are going to find out the difference between the Big 12 and the SEC. But at the same time, I think they're going to show, this is why we wanted to come into this conference, because we want to make a great conference even greater, and really show them that there are more teams that existed. That's why you all wanted us. That's why we wanted you. It's just going to make a strong team stronger, and that's what that's what Kalen DeBoer has to keep his team mindful of this season. That there are there's never been an easy game if you're Alabama, because, like John Calipari used to say about Kentucky basketball when he was here, we are everybody's Super Bowl. When you play Alabama, yeah, that's everybody's Super Bowl. You want to see, if nothing else, if your team can compete with them, not just beat them, but compete with them. And I think with the board, just make sure that there's no fall off from that. Even if you don't win a national title, do not lose your conference. Even with Georgia in it, do what you did last year against them. And again, that took them out of the playoff last year. And that's what I think folks really, and Saturday down south here, that's what they want to see. So, John, let's move on to Major League Baseball. Your pride and joy, Baltimore Orioles. I think the last that I saw, they were a game and a half behind. We're entering the final month of the season. Well, we are in the final month of the season. And a game and a half, as rough as it might be in terms of what's left of your hair somewhere on your body, that I still think by this time next week, a lot of things can change. And you can explain to me why the Orioles can or cannot catch the New York Yankees.
Well, right now they're a half game back. They play the Chicago White Sox tonight, and then they play them again on Wednesday, tomorrow. It's going to be interesting, Gary. Dante wanted to remind me today that the Orioles right now have a 99% chance of making the playoffs. So he basically wants me to shut up about them not making the playoffs. Okay. All right. I hear him loud and clear. But they got Zach Eflin back off the injured lip roster. He pitched this past Sunday. He looked good. They beat the Rockies. Grayson Rodriguez is supposed to come back in the middle of this month. Jake Webb is supposed to come back the middle of this month. Danny Cayune, another reliever, is supposed to come back the middle of this month. Jordan Westberg, third baseman, second baseman, is supposed to come back the end of this month. We'll see. The thing that's really great about this, nobody has really gone on a run, whether it be the Yankees or the Cleveland Indians. The only team that's really
Guardians.
Excuse me. Oh, Cleveland. I'm sorry, the Cleveland Guardians. Please forgive me. Cleveland Guardians. The only team that's really making a run in the second half of the season, Houston Astros. They're just blowing everything away. And the Seattle Mariners made a panic move. They fired their manager, and they're 69-69. They're going south very quickly and may not even make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think when they fired him, I think they were something like 8 games over 500, which, again, in that division, that's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, that's a panic move. That was a panic move to do that. You remember last year the Padres did the same thing. They fired their manager right in the middle of a pennant race. Some things you just don't do. But back to the Orioles, they gotta work on getting consistent pitching out the bullpen. Kim Burrell pitched again Saturday night, Gary. Do you see the look on my face? Do you know where the story is going, Gary?
Yeah, I'm bracing.
It was 5-5 when they brought him in, and he gave up 2 runs, and they lost 7-5.
Yeah, I started having flashbacks of Earl Weaver smoking cigarettes in the dugout when
he had
Don Stanhouse came in.
Yeah. But this isn't Don Stanhouse, because Don Stanhouse had a happy ending every time to his story. Every time. I mean, Weaver smoked a pack of cigarettes in the tunnel every time. But he figured out a way to get out of it. Kimbrell, I mean, I feel so bad for the guy. He tries so hard, and it's just not working right now. And I'm not even sure you can put him on the playoff roster. Him, the guy Soto, I don't know if you can put him on the playoff roster. Dominguez is all right as long as you're bringing him in to save. Don't bring him into a tie game because he gives up home runs. And the other night, he gave up a home run in the save. So, like we talked about before, Gary, their injured list is a starting all-star team. Their injured list. So I give a lot of credit to Brandon Hyde. I complain because I want so much out of them, but this guy has done a really, really great job. When you think about all the players he's lost, the situations that he has, and to be where they are, they're the first team to reach 80 wins yesterday. I mean, the Yankees are at 80 as well, but they played later on in the night. I think Dodgers are at 80 now as well. But when you think about it, Gary, if you ask me on April 1st, John, in the first week of September, if the Orioles had won 80 games and were a half game out of first, how would you feel? I would say I feel great, you know, and he's done a great job. It's just to show how far they've come because the expectation level is extremely high for these orange guys.
Yeah. John, I don't think there's anything wrong with a team like the Orioles being grinders, being they can go on a winning streak, maybe about 3, 4, 5 games, that's fine. But in that division, if I say that if the Yankees hadn't run away with it, then everything, whatever the Orioles do is just fine by me. The one thing you don't want to do is let the Yankees, gain an edge and turn it, like say maybe a 1 game lead into a 4 or 5 game lead, heading into the final weeks of the season. There for all those bats that they've got in that ridiculous lineup, and I'm telling you, I've always been a Juan Soto fan, but this recent tear that he's been on with home runs, it's like, oh my gosh. And then he's got protection around him with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. And I'm like, gosh, that's a team I sure would want to face in October. Having said that, I don't know if I wouldn't want to face the Orioles in September. The worst, being a wild card, John, is not the worst thing in the world for the Orioles. If they don't win that division, I think in essence, they can kind of do what they want. And, the pressure in a sense would be off of them as opposed to being a division champ. But I do want them to win that division because, I want them to, to show that it's not just the New York Yankees and their checkbook that wins division titles. And in the AL, it's just as wide open as can be because a lot of those teams they may not be constructed the same, but they play the same type of that grinded out ball. And even with the Houston Astros going on their tear, they really now look like an American League team as opposed to, say, the National League team that just happened to be playing in the American League, those first few years. They're playing that style of ball and everybody can cancel each other out. And and when you get to the postseason, you're kind of seeing teams that are mirror images of each other.
I think for the Orioles this year, they're better served to continue playing. You want the bye. You want to win the American League East, have one of the 2 top records. But I don't think they need a lot of rest. I think they need to keep playing and keep grinding. And the other thing I would say to you, Gary, and to our viewers, 90 wins will get you the number 1 wild card. 95 gets you the American League East pennant. Those are 2 numbers I'm going with.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, John, I think we pretty much touched on just about everything. What are you looking forward to this week?
More of this NFL football, a little bit of Premier League on Saturday morning, and definitely, I'm looking forward to the Baltimore Orioles. And
By the way,
let me say one more time again, please accept my apology when I made a mistake about the Cleveland nickname. Total accident, Cleveland Guardians. Please forgive me.
John, it happens. Look, how many times have we referred to the Washington football team by their former name as opposed to the Commanders, and we're still going to do it. And there's still people that that are going to do it because in some way through some osmosis that they hope the name will become that again. But that ain't happening, Captain. So that's about it. Folks, watch us on YouTube, watch us on Facebook. We will send you a link. Tell your friends, tell your family about us, because there's a lot that we like to talk. And at some point, we hope some people will call in and give us some actual questions that we can address what they think. John, take us home.
Hey, man, thanks for watching us again. Go watch some NFL football. Go watch some NCAA football. Watch some baseball. Watch some Premier Soccer. Watch the U.S. Open. But above all else, make sure you watch some sports and come back and see us real soon. Take care.